Om Hari Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Vyasa Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Om Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are entering into this Dvitiya Mundakam Prathama Kandaha, the first section of second Mundaka. There is an introduction to the first mantra. Before even we see introduction, as I mentioned this morning, Shankara Bhagavad introduces this topic, first section of the second chapter he introduces. I won't read that Bhashyam now first. Apara vidyayaha sarvam karyam uktam. He just says, Apara vidyayaha sarvam karyam uktam. So everything regarding Apara vidya, including samsara, has been already told where in the previous chapter. This is how Shankara Bhagavad always presents the connection. What has gone before, he wants to say. So, Aparavidyayaha sarvam karyam uktam. So now nobody can say, I do not know anything about Aparavidya. So knowledge of the truth is Paravidya. Knowledge of anything and everything other than Atma is Aparavidya. Aparavidya. So Aparavidya includes knowledge of all Vedas, all rituals, all Upasanams and their benefits, which means Aparavidya Phalam also we know only the highest Phalam is going to heaven. Anyway, only Artha Kama Dharmas can be the results of the Aparavidya. And so Aparavidya is associated with the Artha Kama Dharmas. And Artha Kama Dharmas means we can say Aparavidya is in the form of means and ends, all time-bound results. So including samsara means what? So samsara, the bondage, is very much associated with Aparavidya. So Shankaracharya says very briefly, Aparavidyayaha sarvam karyam uktam means everything regarding Aparavidya, including samsara, has been already told. Now, such a samsaraha Yat saraha yasmat mulat aksharat sambhavati yasmimscha praliyate tad aksharam purushakyam satyam. And he also says, now, such a samsaraha yat sara yat yasmat mulat aksharat sambhavati yasmimscha praliyate tad aksharam purushakyam satyam. And he says, this aksharam, that aksharam known as purushaha and satyam, is the one thing. This aksharam is the source of samsara. What is a samsara? Where has it originated from? Where does samsara exist? Where does it resolve? What is the support of the samsara? He says, from the Brahman only, Shankaracharya says, yasmat mulat aksharat sambhavati yasmimscha praliyate tad aksharam purushakyam satyam. It is the samsara, from that Brahman alone, samsara comes into existence. And into that aksharam alone, samsara returns, resolves. Even samsara, it doesn't exist independently by itself. The source of samsara is this Brahman only, aksharam Brahma. Then he says, which is known as purushaha, which is also known by the term satyam. Then, yasmin vijñāte sarvam idam vijñātam bhavati tat parasyaha brahmavidyayaha vishayaha. Now, what is that one thing by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were? And that is Brahma. That is, knowledge of the Brahman is Paravidya. And the subject matter of Paravidya is Brahma. Therefore, that subject matter must be now taught. Iti uttaraha grantaha arabhyate. So for the sake of teaching the Brahman, for the sake of teaching Aksharam Brahma, for the sake of imparting Paravidya, for which subject matter is Aksharam Brahma, by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were, this, now the teaching is begun here. I can say that Aksharam Brahma, known as Purushaha and Satyam, Aksharam Brahma, known as Purushaha and Satyam, is one thing, one truth, by knowing which everything is known as it were. Everything becomes known as it were. And it is this Aksharam, is subject matter of Brahmavidya. Brahmavidya, which is also known as Paravidya. So, in order to teach this Brahmavidya or Paravidya, the following part of the text is begun. This is how Shankara Bhagavad introduces the teaching here. He says, why is this part of the text begun? This part of the text, this portion of the text is begun mainly to teach that Brahmavidya or Paravidya. So Aksharam Brahma, which is known as Purushaha or Satyam, is that one thing. I can say slowly. So the Aksharam, that Aksharam Brahma, known as Purushaha and Satyam, is the one truth, is that one truth by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were. And it is the subject matter of Brahma Vidya. It means the truth is subject matter of Brahma Vidya, which is also known as Paravidya. Yasmin Vijnate Sarvam Idam Vijnatam Bhavati. Tat Parasya Brahmavidyayaha Vishayaha. Saha Vaktavyaha iti Uttaraha Grantaha Arabhyate. So he says, it is that Brahman, it is that one truth by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were. And that truth is the subject matter of Brahma Vidya, known as Paravidya. Therefore, in order to teach that Brahma Vidya or Paravidya, the following part, the following portion, the part of the text is begun. Iti uttaraha grantaha arabhyate. Is it clear? That it is what Shankara Bhagavad says here. Now we have to enter into the actual mantra. Before we enter that, I want to say a few things. Let me tell you. So in this mantra, which I'm going to read now, the Paravidya is introduced. When Paravidya is introduced, Aksharam Brahma, while introducing Paravidya, Aksharam Brahma is defined as the Jagat Karanam. Aksharam Brahma is defined as the Jagat Karanam, cause of the universe. And why this Aksharam Brahma is defined as the Jagat Karanam? Initially, please remember, initially we accept Brahman being presented as the Jagat Karanam, cause of the universe. Later on, we are going to understand the fact that Brahman is neither the cause nor the effect. What is Brahman? Karana Karya Vilakshanam Brahma. Karya Karana Vilakshanam Brahma. Some terms, when I say it in Sanskritam, you might write it as it is. Karya Karana Vilakshanam Brahma. So Brahman is the truth which is distinct from both cause and effect. Which means Brahman is neither the cause nor the effect. This is the fact we are going to finally understand. But still, initially, Brahman is presented by the Upanishad as the Jagat Karanam. For the sake of teaching. That is why it's called Prakriya. Karana Karya Prakriya. See, whenever Brahman is presented as the cause of the universe, it is only for the sake of teaching. It is a method of teaching. It's called Prakriya. Why Brahman should be presented as the cause of the Jagat? Unless Brahman is shown as the cause of the universe. The student's question, the student has a question. What is that one thing by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were? Kasmin Vijnate Sarvam Idam Vijnatam Bhavati. Do you remember mantra? You must memorize that mantra. Kasmin Vijnate Sarvam Idam Vijnatam Bhavati. What is that one thing by knowing which everything else becomes known as it were? This was the student's question. So now, in order to answer the student's question, Brahman is presented as the Jagat Karanam. So that, see, the one and the only cause of the universe. Brahman is the one and the only cause of the universe. Means, but this Brahman, which is presented as the one and the only cause of the universe, is the subtlest reality. Okay, Brahman, which is presented as the one and the only cause of the universe, is presented as, is the subtlest reality. Therefore, it is not very easy to understand Brahman. For reason number one, I'm telling you why Brahman is presented as the Jagat Karanam. First thing, the one and the only cause of the universe is Brahman. And Brahman happens to be the subtlest reality. It is not easy to understand Brahman. The second thing, and Brahman, even though Brahman is presented as the material cause of the universe, still Brahman is not Parinami Upadana Karanam, which means Brahman is not Parinami Upadana Karanam. Like milk for the yogurt. I mean, any cause which undergoes a change to become an effect is called Parinami Upadana Karanam. Brahman is not Parinami Upadana Karanam. But if Brahman is not the Parinami Upadana Karanam, then what cause is Brahman of the universe? Brahman is the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Vivarta Upadana Karanam. So, Vivarta Upadana Karanam means Brahman is like the rope for the snake. Yeah. Okay. So, I see the snake in the place of rope. I see the snake in the place of rope. Therefore, Vivarta Karanam, Vivarta Upadana Karanam of the snake is in my mind only. Where is the Vivarta Upadana Karanam? The rope is the Vivarta Upadana Karanam of the snake. But I see the snake in the place of rope. Therefore, this Vivarta Upadana Karanam of the rope, the snake. Vivarta Karanam is in my mind only. The sense, seeing the snake in the place of rope, where is it seen? In the mind. Therefore, the Vivarta Karanam is in my mind only. It is my projection. It is my own projection. Therefore, seeing a snake in the place of a rope is my projection. The student has to understand this fact. The student has to understand this fact that snake is seen in the place of rope, and this is the projection, my own projection. Similarly, student has to understand here also. So once the student understands this, similarly here also, Brahman is the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Varta Upadana Karanam, because of which they're not seeing the Brahman. In the place of Brahman, Jagat is seen. In the place, just as in the place of rope, snake is seen. In the place of Brahman, Jagat is seen. So this Vivarta Upadana Karanam, this projection is in my mind. And student has to understand this. So once the student understands this causal status of Brahman can be negated. Once the student understands this, the causal status of Brahman can be negated. Is it clear? So, however, the Upanishad is not doing that here itself. Upanishad does not do the negation of causal status here itself. Because the student has yet to understand the true nature of Brahman. When can you negate? Unless the student understands this, it cannot be negated. Therefore, Upanishad does not negate here because the student has yet to understand the true nature of Brahman. The student can understand the true nature of Brahman only when the Brahman is presented as the cause of the universe. Which means the student cannot understand Brahman without seeing it first as the cause of the universe. Without understanding. In order to understand the causal status, to understand the essential nature of Brahman, student has to understand the causal status of Brahman. Is it clear? See, in order to understand the essential nature of Brahman, student has to understand the causal status of Brahman. Okay. Therefore, the Upanishad, in order to make sure that the student definitely understands the causal status of Brahman. Is it clear now? The Upanishad is very keen that the student has to understand the causal status of Brahman so that student can understand the essential nature of Brahman. Therefore, Upanishad explains how Brahman is the cause of the universe. And to explain that Brahman being the cause of the universe, Upanishad presents one example. Which example? Fire and fire sparks. Even though Upanishad uses example, Shankara Bhagavad in his commentary, he explains this, he accepts the Upanishad's example, still he is not very satisfied with this example. So Shankara Bhagavad adds his own example of part space and total space example. He adds in his commentary. Now you must remember, this is what the methodology. So you can see how the methodology is built in here. Why Upanishad presents the Brahman as the cause of the universe? The student has to understand the causal status of Brahman in order to understand the essential nature of Brahman. And why we need this method? Because Brahman is very subtle. subtlest. It is difficult to understand. Therefore, somehow the student has to arrive at this abstract nature of Brahman. In order to help him arrive at the abstract nature of Brahman, Upanishad has to present Brahman as the Jagat Karanam. And to present Brahman as Jagat Karanam, Upanishad has to give an example for which Upanishad here presents the example of fire and fire sparks. As I said, later on Shankara Bhagavad will also give, in his commentary later on, towards the end, he gives the example of total space and part space. So here, we're going to see the mantra. Upanishad says, before even reading the mantra, let me tell you. See, fire is one. Fire is one element. But from that fire alone, many sparks emerge. Many countless sparks of fire emerge from one fire. So also, Paramatma is one. Paramatma is one, but the Jivas originating from it, Paramatma, are many. The idea he gives, a example is given here. So just as from one fire element, many innumerable countless sparks emerge, so also Paramatma is one. From that only Paramatma, many jivas originate. Here, Shankara Bhagavad is not very satisfied with that example. No, why? Because fire and sparks, this example of fire and sparks. Why? Because there's a distance between fire and sparks. Distance is there. So he is not happy. That is why, see, there is no distance between Paramatma and Jivatma. There's no distance between Paramatma and Jivatma. But this example, between fire and a fire sparks, there is distance. So he is not very happy. Therefore, he gives another example of part space and total space example. So there, in his commentary, we are going to see very quick. If I tell you this before, then I can easily take you to the Bhashyam. He says, just as from total space, many small spaces are seemingly created. Many small spaces are not really created, as though created. From this one space, Mahan Akashaha. From Mahan Akashaha, many small spaces are seemingly created, are created as though. So also, from Paramatma, different jivas, many jivas, conditioned by different bodies, are as though created. So from Paramatma, only Paramatma, many jivas conditioned by bodies are as though created. The word as though or seemingly is very important. Why this expression as though created or seemingly created is very important. It's a significant word because no such division takes place either in space or in Paramatma. Such a division does not take place at all in space or in Paramatma. Is it clear what I'm saying? Yeah. Therefore, that is why this word as though created, seemingly created. parts, many part spaces are as though created from total space. Many jivas are as though created from one Paramatma. Now here we have to understand, really speak, there's no part space really born from total space. Really speaking, there is no part space born from total space. If part space is not born, then what happens when, how do we get to part space then? How is it born then? We do use the expression. It is said very beautifully. What happens is, when the part is created, along with the part space is not created, but the word part space is created. That's important, okay? When the part is created, part space is not created, but along with the part, the word part space is created. So, but this new word part space is created. Now what happens? Having created this new expression part space, and we say part space is born. Is it clear what I'm saying? Part space is born. This is how the part space is born. Similarly, the same thing you have to extend it to Atma also. Now what happens after having created this expression part space? Now the total space becomes the cause. Part space is, so then we call the total space as the cause, and the cause of the part space. It's also known as greater space or bigger space. And part space is called what? Effect, product of that space. This is how causal status is attributed to space, total space. Even though we know very well what is only space, only one space. Space is one in undivided, partless, indivisible whole. Only one space. This one indivisible, undivided, partless whole space is one, but still there are two different spaces are created. What is that now? A product called part space and a cause called total space. Cause and the effect. The part space is the effect and the total space is the cause. See, two spaces we have created. Out of the what? This one undivided, indivisible, partless, whole, Mahan Akashaha. These two have been now created. Two means as cause and the effect. So, similarly, the same way, we ourselves create a difference in Atma Chaitanyam. The same way, we create a difference in consciousness implied by the term Atma. The only truth, or Brahma Chaitanyam, or Atma Chaitanyam. So we create a difference. There's no difference. It's a one whole. So consciousness also, the abstract reality obtaining in the form of consciousness implied by the term Brahman or Atma is also one undivided, indivisible, partless whole. But still we create difference. How? Because of the body. And then call the Chaitanya. Then this Chaitanyam, the consciousness, associated with the body as Jiva, Jivatma. Later on, we ourselves call this consciousness Chaitanyam associated with the body as Jivatma. Then what we say next step. Later, we call this Jivatma as what now? Created from other total consciousness. Then we say this Jivatma now is created from total consciousness. If you just see all these things, you can see it becomes very clear for you. And his total consciousness is what? Paramatma. So, total consciousness is Paramatma. Therefore, we do talk about two different things as Jivatma and Paramatma. Jivatma the effect, Paramatma the cause. Thus, therefore, what happens? Body becomes, therefore, we have to remember now, therefore, body becomes nimittam. Nimitta means instrumental. Body becomes instrumental. The cause for this Jivatma Paramatma difference. What becomes the cause for the Jivatma Paramatma difference? This total space, part space difference is caused by the part becomes the cause. Similarly, body becomes nimittam for Jivatma Paramatma difference. That even though there's no real difference, body becomes nimittam for seeming difference, not real difference. Is it clear? Not real difference. Not only difference. Then we say what? Relationship also. See, relationship is dependent on two factors. One can be related to the other. Now, this body becomes nimittam for difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Also for what? Relationship. Now we understand why prayer is a will involved auto-suggestion. That is the reason. Prayer is called will involved auto-suggestion because we create a difference. Seeming difference. You have to create the difference, then you have to see the relationship also. Where is the relationship? Where is the difference, really speaking? You can see how gradually it is developed. What we're going to see in the Bhasham, I'm already telling you. So that you will enjoy the Bhasham. Therefore, Shankara Bhagavad says, both these factors, which factors? Difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma are not of an intrinsic nature. Both these factors, in terms of both these factors, there is difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma are not of an intrinsic nature, but an incidental nature. incidental nature. And created by what? The situation created by the body. How do we know that? Because when the body is removed, when the body is removed, neither do we find the Jivatma, find the created Jivatma, nor do we find the creator Paramatma as two things. There is only Atma. It's exactly like what? When the part which is responsible for the division and the seeming division, seeming difference between part space and total space. There's a part which is responsible for the relationship between part space and total space. Okay, seeming, that disappears when it's not intrinsic, it is incidental. When the part is broken, then afterwards we do not find the created part space and the cause, the total space also. So here also, once the body falls, then we do not find this created jiva also disappears. In the sense, creator, the jiva also is not there. Creator, Paramatma also is not there. What is there is only the Atma. Is it clear? Only the Atma. So, when the pot breaks, what is? Of really speaking, the buddhi is there. That is a notion, isn't it? I am different is a notion. See, Jiva is Chaitanyam only. There's no Jivatma. Jiva is Chaitanyam. Paramatma is Chaitanyam. What is only one indivisible, partless consciousness? Whole. Only one truth. Body is the nimittam for this seeming difference to be there between Paramatma, yes, Jivatman, Paramatma. Now, sir, body becomes nimittam for this relationship also, as the creator Paramatma, as the created Jivatma, as the cause and the effect. So this difference and relationship is not intrinsic nature, it's incidental. Why do we say when the body falls, this difference resolves? Relationship also goes. Then there's no, after the body, when the body is not there, there's no such a thing called Jiva nor Paramatma. What is only Atma. Only Atma. See, that is why just keep on listening, it will fall in its place. Until now it's clear, isn't it? Yeah. We'll see that. Everything we'll see later on. It's development, gradual development. See, but the problem is the difference is taken to be very real. Even though it's intrinsic, it is not intrinsic. The difference is not intrinsic nature. It's not real nature. It's only incidental. Seeming as though. But how does it appear? We take it very seriously as real. So here that is made, it is just examples are shown. That is why the truth is very abstract. That is why examples are given. Isn't it? Shankar Bhagavad Pada tells the example why this teaching introduction itself is said. The teaching is begun just to drive home the, the student, the fact. The student should understand the Brahma. Okay, what it is said. See, when a pot breaks, next step, when a pot breaks, what happens to the space? Nothing happens to the space. It's all, it may sound very simple. This is all, you have to go by step to make it, for us to become very clear. When the pot breaks, nothing happens to the space. But it may appear as though the pot space has become merged. Pot space has merged into the total space. It may appear. The fact is, there is no merger takes place. Similarly, consciousness is one and the same undivided, indivisible whole. So now, whether the body, the upadhi exists, or whether the body, the upadhi is not there. Whether upadhis are there or not, upadhis go. But what happens? It may appear as though the Jivatma has merged into Paramatma. When the body falls, it may appear as though the Jivatma has merged into Paramatma. Really speaking, this merger also exactly like the origination of the Jivatma. If creation of Jivatma, origination of Jivatma is as though merging into Paramatma, also Jivatma merging into Paramatma is also what? No, as though. There's no real merger. There cannot be merger because Jivatma was never away from Paramatma. There's no real difference. There's no real relationship. As though relationship, as though difference, therefore as though merging. Is it clear? This much we need to understand. Now we can enter into this mantra. Otherwise, simply mantra, 4 lines finished. You must remember this much. Okay. Tadetat satyam tadetat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakad vispulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha yathaksharat vividhaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra chaivapi yanti. Repeat again. Tadetat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakad vispulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha Tathaksharaad Vividha Somya Bhavaha Vidha Somya Bhavaha Prajayante Tatra Chaivapi Yanti Tatra Chaivapi Yanti Tadetat Satyam Tadetat Satyam Yatha Sudiptat Pavakad Yatha Sudiptat Pavakad Vispulingaha Sahasrashaha Lingaha Sahasrashaha Prabhavante Sarupaha Prabhavante Sarupaha Tathaksharad Taksharad Vividha Somya Bhavaha Vividha Somya Bhavaha Prajayante Prajayante Tatra Chaivapi Yanti Tatra Chaivapi Yanti. Now, Tad Etat Satyam. This is the truth. Okay. Yatha. What is conveyed here is a fact. Now, Yatha. Yatha is an indeclinable word which means just as. No, Sudiptat Pavakat. See, Deepta means well kindled or blazing fire. Pavakaha means fire. Pavakaha is another word for fire. You know, you have learned so many words for fire. No? Agnihi, Havyavahanaha, Jatavedaha, so many names. And here Agnihi is called Pavakaha. It is not relevant here. I want to tell you because Agni is specifically known as Pavakaha because he's a purifier. Punati iti Pavakaha. Why? Because anything you put into fire burns and reduces. All the germs are killed, everything. That's why we always go for, fire means actually cleanser, all cleansing. For any sterilization, we need only fire. That's why fire is called, even air is called Pavanaha because the same reason. But more than air, fire is the purifier. Okay, that's different lesson, not important here. So, Sudiptat Pavakat, from a blazing fire. So, just as from a blazing fire, Vispulingaha. Vispulingaha means a spark. So, fire sparks, Vispulingaha. Echoes. Echo comes, no? Okay. Vispulingaha Sahasrashaha Prabhavante. Thousands. In Sahasrashaha means Sahasram, thousand. In thousands. In thousands is a upalaksham, just to say innumerable, countless, many sparks. Prabhavante. And then sparks of same nature. You must be very careful. Here, Sarupaha means sparks of same nature. All the sparks are hot and brilliant. All the sparks are the same. All of them are hot and all of them are brilliant. Blazing. So, many sparks of same nature. Sarupaha, same nature. Prabhavante, originate. Come into existence. Prabhavante. So just as Sudiptat Pavakat, from blazing fire, Sahasrashaha in thousands, Vispulingaha sparks of say Sarupaha Vispulingaha. very important. Sarupaha vispulingaha, sparks of same nature, prabhavante, originate, come into existence or born. Tatha. Tatha, similarly, in the same way, so also, aksharat. Aksharat, from Aksharam Brahma, from Aksharam Brahma, Vividhaha Bhavaha. There's a word, the third line, there's a word Somya. That Somya is a, oh beloved student. Okay, a Somya is an expression of endearment. This teacher calls the student, hey Somya, he says, Vividhaha Bhavaha. Many, many, many varieties of beings prajayante are born. The word prajayante is the next line. Tatha, same in the same way. So also aksharat, from aksharam brahma, vividhaha, varieties of bhavaha, beings. The word bhavaha means beings. Vividhaha, varieties. So varieties of beings, vividhaha bhavaha, prajayante are born. Okay, not only they are born, tatracha eva apiyanti. They're born. So varieties of beings are born from the Aksharam Brahma, and again they resolve back into that same Brahman, into that Brahman only. Apiyanti, tatra, there itself. Tatra eva, there itself, into that Brahman itself. Cha, and apiyanti, they return. They resolve back into that Brahman only. This much is the literal meaning of the mantra. Clean, this mantra is not like other mantras. Clean mantra, words are all complete sentence. Is easy to, sometimes now the words are, we have to supply a lot of words to get the meaning. Here that confusion is not there. Clean mantra, clean sentences, no ambiguity there. Very clean. So aksharat. Tata aksharat vividhaha bhavaha prajayante tatraiva cha apiyanti. They resolve also back into the same Brahman only. Same Aksharam Brahma only. Hey Somya, O pleasant one, O pleasing one, O dear student, O my beloved student. Oh, hey Somya, the teacher tells. This is the literal meaning. Now let us go back to Yes, Swamiji? No question. Okay. Okay. So here, I thought Swamiji was asking a question. So Sarupaha is an important word. All the sparks are of same nature. All of them, fire is hot, all of them are hot. And fire is shining, all of them shine. So they're brilliant also. That example is given here. Similarly, all the beings have come into existence from Brahman. Means this is the lesson. Let us read this Bhashyam now. We already seen how it is. Here Shankar Bhagavad is going to explain, but when he is explaining, he's also going to give another example as I mentioned earlier. Let us read it here. See, what is the first word? Tadetat satyam. Tadetat satyam. This is the truth. Okay. Yadu, I'm reading the Bhasham, page number 150. Yadu aparavidya vishayam karma phala lakshanam satyam tad apekshikam. First, he wanted to comment upon the word satyam. Now, what about satyam? You all, see, this morning I mentioned this. We all heard this word satyam in the previous chapter, previous section. There the word satyam was satyaka maha. Remember, the teacher addressed satyaka maha, yeshaha pantaha. There the word satyam was used to mean karma phalam. So Shankara Bhagavad is very careful, conscious. Already all these students have learned this word satyam. No, for this word satyam, in our minds now satyam means karma phalam. That must be sitting because we all have already we have learned it. So now he wants to remind us, no, satyam used in the karma kanda context is different from satyam used in the jnana kanda context. In the Jnana Yoga context. So he says, Yad aparavidya vishayam karma phala lakshanam satyam tad apekshikam. When the word he said, it had been said that the nature of karma phalam born out of aparavidya is satyam. Do you remember that? The nature of result of action, karma phalam, born out of aparavidya is satyam. It was mentioned earlier. So, but now this truth is not, but here we have to understand how this truth is not absolute truth, but only a relative one. Satya means karma phalam is said to be the truth. Karma phalam is satyam. Karma phalam is the truth. How can you say karma phalam as the truth? So that karma phalam, the karma phalam also is said to be the truth, but that is not absolute truth. That is relative truth. He mentions that. Satyam apekshikam. Shankara Bhagavad uses the term apekshikam. Apekshikam satyam means relative truth. So, the karma phalam born out of aparavidya which was mentioned as satyam, the truth. But still, that truth is not absolute, but relative apekshikam. This is the meaning of the first sentence. Then, idam tu paravidya vishayam paramartha sallakshanatvat. So here, the subject matter of paravidya, however, is the absolute truth. Okay, he says that. Subject matter of paravidya is absolute truth. First itself, before entering into the discussion on aksharam, even this confusion should be clear. So he starts his teaching like this. So, the subject matter of paravidya is the absolute truth, absolute satyam. Why? Because how do we say subject matter of paravidya is the absolute truth? Because it deals with one and the only Brahman. He said, Tadetat satyam yathabhutam vidya vishayam. Yathabhutam vidya vishayam means, he says, subject matter of paravidya is the absolute truth because it deals with one and the only reality, Brahman. Is it clear now? The next sentence he says, avidya vishayatvat anritam idam. Anritam itarat. Avidya vishayatvat cha anritam itarat. He says, whereas avidya, aparavidya talks about avidya. Aparavidya talks about avidya. Subject matter of aparavidya is avidya. So subject matter of paravidya is what? Paravidya. Paravidya. Subject matter of paravidya is absolute truth. And it deals with one and the only Brahman. Whereas subject matter of aparavidya is avidya, ignorance. You have to differentiate this. Even subject matter he differentiates. Subject matter of paravidya is absolute truth, Brahman. Subject matter of aparavidya is avidya. And this avidya is what? Actually mithya, anritam. Mithya, anritam, he says. Avidya vishayatvat cha anritam itarat. It's only mithya. Shankara Bhagavad uses the term anritam. So subject matter of aparavidya is avidya, ignorance. Ignorance means what? Ignorance related to the objective world, objects. And this is anritam mithya. Now, we have to understand. Atyanta parokshatvat katham nama pratyakshatva satyam aksharam patipadyeran iti drishtantam aha. Very beautiful development of the teaching. First, having said this, now he says, is it clear now? What is satyam, what is mithya? You cannot call karma aparavidya associated thing as satyam. Only relative. But still, aparavidya, subject matter of aparavidya itself is ajnanam, avidya. It is mithya, anritam. So, subject matter of paravidya alone is Brahma, the only absolute truth. Then he says, atyanta parokshatvat. That is finished. Now, next sentence. Atyanta parokshatvat katham nama pratyakshatva satyam aksharam pratipadyeran iti drishtantam. He said here, suppose if the question is raised, Brahman is abstract reality. And then, so it is not at all accessible to sense organs. If Brahman, the abstract reality, is not accessible to sense organs, how can one understand Brahman? How can one understand Brahman? Therefore, then that answer is given here. For that, the answer is, it is the answer given that a student definitely can have a clear knowledge of Brahman as if he actually has seen it. Okay, the student can have clear knowledge of the Brahman. You have to show it. So, drishtantamaha, with the help of examples. Drishtanta means example. See, Sanskritam sentence is a very short sentence. To make exactly, for you to understand, we have to make long sentences. Don't think we make it too long. The thing is, what is conveyed by a very short sentence in Sanskritam, to make it intelligible, I had to make a long sentence in English. It looks, because Sanskritam looks very simple. Atyanta parokshatvat. Katham nama pratyakshatva satyam aksharam pratipadyeran iti drishtantamaha. So the example, he says, now Upanishad presents the example. Drishtantam aha. the example is given that for the clear knowledge of the student should have very clear knowledge of Brahman as if actually he has seen it. His clear knowledge of Brahman must be such as if he has clearly seen it. Okay? So for him to have the clear knowledge of Brahman as if he has seen it, to show him, by showing it to him, how? With these examples, with the help of examples. So it is inaccessible. Definitely Brahman is not accessible at all for any pramanam, not sense organs. Definitely not sense organs. Then if it is not accessible for sense organs, then how can one know? If such a question arises, the answer is given here. What is the answer? The student can definitely get a very clear knowledge of Brahman as if he has seen it. And in order for him to have clear understanding, these examples are given here. This is his Shankara introduction to this mantra. First he introduced the section. Now he is introducing the mantra. Now he is going to comment upon the mantra. So Shankara Bhagavad-pada's commentary upon the mantra begins in the next paragraph. When the Brahma Vidya subject matter comes, teaching will be very clear. The Karma Kanda, a lot of questions will come. And because so many things we don't understand. Understand in the sense, lot of what happens to Swarga, going to that path, this path, nothing is verifiable. We had to only just listen to what Veda says and we had to listen. Whereas in Jnana Kanda portion is not like that. Because it is, we have to understand. There cannot be any vague sentences. Won't be there. Okay. In page number, see, Sankaracharya tells why this example is given. That he explained. Okay. Next part. Yatha sudiptat sushtudiptat idhat pavakat agnehi vispulingaha agnyavayavaha sasrashaha anekashaha prabhavante nirgachanti sarupaha agni salakshanaha eva. Same thing. Just repeats the same mantra with the more Sanskrit words. Okay? For each Sanskrit word in the mantra, he gives his own Sanskrit word. Let me tell you. Sudiptat, from well kindled, blazing. Sushtudiptat. See, two different words. If you, the Sanskrit one, you'll be enjoyed because another Sanskrit word he gives. Then, not only that, idhat. Idhat means what? It's not some smoky fire. No, smokeless, clean, nice fire. Idhat. Then what is that? What is that blazing, well-kindled? He has pavakat. Pavakat, from that fire. What is pavakat? He gives the meaning agnehe. Pavakat is equal to agnehe, from fire. Vispulingaha. He gives the name for the sparks, Agni Avayavaha. Just as we have hands and legs as Avayavas, limbs, sparks are like the limbs of the fire. Okay, Agni Avayavaha means sparks, parts of fire. Even Panology writes parts of fire, which means Agni Avayavaha. Parts of fire are what? Sparks of fire. Then Sahasrashaha, Anekashaha, innumerable. Prabhavante, Nirgachanti, they emerge from that fire. But one thing is Sarupaha, Agni Salakshanaha Eva. All the sparks are equally, all of them are of the same nature. They have whatever Karana Gunaha Karye Santi. Whatever is the nature of the cause, the effects also have the same nature. Fire is hot, so spark also is hot. Fire is brilliant, shining, the spark also is shining. So, Sarupaha, they are of the same nature. Agni Salakshanaha eva Tathokta Lakshanat. Okay, now he gives an example. Example is over. Eva. Tatha. In the same way, similarly, Ukta Lakshanat Aksharat. The Aksharam Brahma, which was already introduced, it was defined in number 6 of the first section. Ukta Lakshanat Aksharat. So we cannot say, I do not know Brahman at all. Already, Upanishad has introduced very briefly Aksharam Brahma. The 6th mantra, remember? So, Yattadadreshamagrahyam. That mantra now you have to remember. Ukta Lakshanat means that Brahman which was defined previously in the first section. From that Brahman, Aksharat. Vividhaha Nana Deha Upadi Bedam Anuvidhiya, Adu Anuvidhiyamanatvat, Nana Deha Upadi Bedam Anuvidhiyamanatvat, Vividhaha, He Somya Bhavaha, Jivaha, Akashadi Iva Ghatadi, Akashat Iva Ghatadi, Parichinnaha, Sushira Bhedaha, Ghatadi Upadi Prabedam Anubhavanti. Same thing, we have seen everything already. But I told you, he just gives the example of this mantra, and immediately he hasn't completed this sentence. He also brings into the context his own example of space. Akashati Iva Ghatadi Parichinnaha Sushira Bhedaha. How many part spaces. Sushiram also means some part one. Bhedaha. Ghatadi, he also used the word Ghatadi. Ghatadi Upadi Bhedam Anubhavanti. Evam. Okay, let me stop and tell you what he says. So, similarly, many varied beings also originate from Aksharam Brahma. But how do they originate? He says, Nana Deha Upadi Bedam Anuvidiyamanatvat. Because of the different upadis. So already he's making it very clear. Aksharam Brahma is one and the only reality. From that many jivas are born. But how are they born? Are jivas born? So he wants to make it very clear. So here he presents the Agni as the cause of the Vispulingaha. Vispulingaha, all the sparks are the effects. Fire is the what? The cause of the sparks is the fire. Similarly, here this Aksharam Brahman is the cause. Now all these jivas which have originated from this Aksharam Brahma are the products, effects, created beings. No, they're all parichinnaha, limited. Parichinnaha, sushira bhedaha. Just as the space ghatadi upadi bedam anubhavanti. Now the space The indivisible space being divided as though by these parts, etc. The indivisible partless space, because of the parts, ghatadi, because of the many parts, etc., upadis such as parts, etc., obtaining in space, seemingly divided. Similarly, he says, evam nana rupa, nana nama rupa krita deha upadhi prabhavam anuprajayante. So this aksharam Brahma also, even though one and the only reality, still because of this body upadis in the form of bodies of what? Not one or two, nana rupa, not just the human beings alone. Nana nama rupa krita deha upadhi prabhavam anuprajayante. They also have different names, different forms, having become different forms, having different names. They all come into existence. So beings of different forms and names come into existence because of these upadis. The important point is what? Upadi. Is it clear now? I made it clear or not? Okay. And all these beings which have originated, all these beings, varieties of beings which have come into existence with different upadis of forms and names, tatra chaiva tasminneva akshare apiyanti. They also resolve into that same Brahman. When do they resolve? He says, Deha upadi vilayam anuliyante. Anuliyante. So all these jiva beings, see, example, we should not stretch the examples. Sparks, where do they go back to fire? We should not ask questions. We just take it as a cause. Now he says, towards the end, he says, all these beings also, all these varieties of beings with different upadis of forms and names, which have come into existence from that only Aksharam Brahma, when these upadis resolve, upadis fall, when upadis fall, they resolve back into that Brahman. Anuliyante. Deha upadi vilayam. When the body fall, upadis fall, all these beings also resolve back into that Brahman. They resolve in Brahman. And he also gives another example. He also says, Ghatadi vilayam anu iva sushira bhedaha. Sushira bhedaha means this differences between part spaces. This is one part space. You keep hundreds of parts in space. Difference between all the differences, whether difference between two part spaces or difference between one part space and the total space, all the differences and relationships all will disappear. Is it clear? But what he says towards the end, he says, Sushira Bhedaha. Sushira Bhedaha. All these differences between, see, difference is between what? Difference between one part space and another part space, or difference between one part space and the total space, all these differences and relationship between this part space and total space, or part space and another part space, the differences and relationship we have to supply. These two both factors resolve when the parts, the upadhis are broken. Similarly, when this body, the upadhis of varieties of beings which cause the difference and relationship between the Paramatma and Jivatma, they also, these differences resolve when the upadhis fall. Is it clear? That's what he says in this. The whole paragraph is a clean teaching. What we have seen here, I've already told you. Everything is, yes. Upahitam is a name attributed to the Chaitanyam in the presence of the Upadhi. Upahitam, suppose part space is Upahitam, part is Upadhi. Like that, the consciousness gets the qualification of being the Upahitam in the presence of the Upadhi. The Upadhi goes, Upahitam status goes. Upadhi goes, Upahitam status also goes. Just the one and the only consciousness, only truth. Huh? Flower is the Upadhi. Yeah, a crystal loses the status of being the Upahitam. Yeah. That's only example. Japa, Kusmam and Spatikam, the hibiscus and Spatikam examples given by Shankaracharya. That's example. Just to understand that. Actually speaking, here we say, only from the stand, I didn't even mention the word Upahitam here. I never mentioned the word Upahitam in this class. Upahitam is a qualification attributed to consciousness from the standpoint of the Upadhi. So that is not there. So the difference between, now we are, what is important point, you must remember, when the teaching is presented development, you have to see here, what he wants to say, Bhedaha Sambandhaha, two important factors. Relationship, the difference and the connection, relationship. Isn't it? So we, in our perception, already what is strongly there's a difference. And also the upadhi, the difference and relationship also. So relationship also is not possible. Difference also is not there because Atma is one and the only truth. One and the only indivisible, undivided, partless whole. Very important expression that is. Partless whole. We saw in Aitreya Upanishad how this Atma is free from Sajatiya Bheda, Vijatiya Bheda, Swagata Bheda. Remember all that? So it's free, absolutely free from differences because there's no second thing other than that. We saw all that. So here this consciousness is the only truth, which is Aksharam Brahma. What is implied by the term Aksharam is this indestructible, imperishable reality is one and only consciousness is implied by the term Brahma. The Brahman is one indivisible, partless whole. But now, this Brahma alone has these two qualifications as Parama Atma and Jiva Atma. So this division is caused by what? There's no real division, there's no real difference, there's no real connection, sambandha. But still there is a as though relationship, this as though difference. Difference is there. As though difference That seeming difference is there. Seeming relationship is there. That is caused by the body. Just as the space difference between the total space and part space is caused by the part. Similarly, here the difference between Paramatma and Jivatma is caused by the body. How do we know this? When the body falls, no, we only find the Atma, then neither Jivatma nor Paramatma. What is only Brahma. Therefore, as though, then when the body falls also, there's as though the Jivatma merges into Paramatma. That is also not true. How origination of Jivat, all the Jivas is not there. So also there's no origination of the Jivas are not there. Similarly, resolution of the Jivas also is not there. In the sense, there's no such a thing called merging, because Atma never became two. For Atma to become one again. Always it was one before, it is one now, it will ever be one. Okay. Time. How time passed today? I didn't even know about it. Is it clear? Yeah, we'll come back and see. That is why, see, before reading the Bhashyam itself, if we know what is there, then it'll be easy to understand. Because what I feel, because Sanskritam I'm simply reading. I know you all enjoy it. Swamiji mentioned it. That is still, if already, when I read, I feel like stopping in between and telling. If you break and tell, you lose the connection. So if I tell you beforehand what is there, and then you will listen, even if you break it, it's okay. Isn't it? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.